Sweetwater to revert back to their original policy. Thank you.
And just a general question, you have spoken to them
Oh,
about
yes.
this? Okay,
I've been to many of their meetings. A lot of the people in this room have been to their meetings as well.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next person would be Sean Walsh. And I should probably give the other people a warning, so you can be queued up. Carolyn McGrovick would be next.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right, thank you. Thanks for having me this morning. I just wanted to come on behalf of the Loveland efforts. It's a lake local to me and dear in my heart, and I believe it should be treated better and the fishermen should be treated better, and that more efforts should be made to preserve fishing access, as well as the bird watching and hiking access. And I hope that you, as board, will be able to assist the taxpayers and the fishermen in making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we have many people to hear from, but generally I don't see how this board can assist. But we're very interested in creating this venue and listening to what you have to say, and maybe we could figure something out. Carolyn McGrovick, and after Carolyn, we have Warner Rockabear. Please, apologies to everybody as I mispronounce your names. I'm so sorry. Is Carolyn with us? Oh, please come to the podium, Carolyn.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity for public comment. And I'm coming to you as a Loveland stakeholder with the idea that I know that water quality and permitting the protection of water quality is a primary mission of this body, as well as promoting a balance of beneficial uses for water in our region. And Loveland Reservoir, we feel, is an excellent case study in what it means to have a balance of beneficial uses. And we have asked your executive officer to help us get better educated about the issues. And perhaps I'm coming here for you today to ask you to please support or give permission for your executive officer to investigate the best management practices for reservoirs. Because what we've experienced at Loveland Reservoir is 24 years of success of a balance of beneficial uses as stated by your board policy. And in recent years, as Karen Wood described, there was an abandonment of that policy. And we were told that they have the right to kill the fishery, they have the right to impair or deny recreational access, and that they have the right to take away the firefighting resources between Hummel and Alpine. So we feel that those rights come with responsibilities. And we've learned, so I think it's a perfect case study to find out what happens when you completely drain a reservoir. The water quality was threatened by all of the erosion, and the money that they gained, the $6 million that they gained from draining the reservoir, turned out to be a negative because of all the damage that occurred. So in the name of fiscal responsibility, in the name of water quality, in the name of balanced uses, we're very hopeful that your executive officer can devote some of his time to reservoir management in the whole region, using Loveland as a case study. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Warner Wackenborough, and after that, Eric Avila.
Hello, Warner Reckabairn, and I'm representing Friends of Loveland also. And we actually need your help because we have an out-of-control Sweetwater board. They have stated they can do anything they want. And that is evidenced by the entire draining of 100% of the water, the complete fish killing in there. They had to use heavy equipment to bury the carcasses, and they got away with it. Now they want the taxpayers to pay to restock it and bring it back. I mean, this is really crazy. This is insanity. The board is out of control for Sweetwater, and we need your help to rein them in a bit. Thank you.
Eric Avila, and afterwards, Robert Hatton. Is Mr. Avila here? Okay, we'll hold that to the side. Robert Hatton, and after Robert Hatton, Russell Walsh.
Good morning, I'm Robert Hatton. I'm not much of an activist, but when I saw the havoc that ensued from Loveland Reservoir, draining their reservoir to almost to dead pool level, it made me concerned. And I now am very concerned about the future of the ecological and biodiversity that depends on Loveland Reservoir staying at a reasonable level to ensure that no species, no environmental damage is done. I live downstream. It's called the Watershed. My purpose for being here, I understand, is to make sure that the executive director of your board, to connect what you were asking, how can you help? To make sure the executive director of your board focuses some resources, channels some energy to make sure that the managers of Loveland do not run their operation like a fiefdom. We have been to several meetings, and unfortunately, I have seen that they don't really pay much attention to what the impact of their management practices are doing. For instance, we heard at one of the early meetings that they might do sand mining up at Loveland Reservoir. Sand mining. Just know that that's a bad thing for the environment. They've already approved, the Sweetwater Authority has already approved it for their lower reservoir. What I hope is that This raises your awareness. If you didn't really know what was going on at Loveland, please take a moment, ask your executive director to hold some meetings and have some accountability for all that depends on that reservoir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Russell Walsh, and after Mr. Walsh, Mary Davis.
Good morning, Chair Cantu and Board. My name is Russell Walsh, and first want to say that I appreciate Executive Officer Gibson for giving me a few meetings that resulted from the disappointment that we had that the 8-month investigation into Sweetwater Authority was culminated with 0 reprimands, zero sanctions for them for what they did. And some of you, I believe, are probably more in touch with what happened at Loveland Reservoir. I've been involved with this for 4 years. I knew it was coming. I filed a Cal EPA complaint. What we need is where regulatory efforts can't stop these things from happening for whatever reason, political, whatever, that minds and hearts switch over and say that there's not enough clout in the world to allow these things to happen. Because it was a problem of clout, not justice. And there's a man's going to speak here. He's got a 6-year-old son. It matters to him that we have ethical government, that, you know, this is constitutionally protected, reasonable use of water. There were Port of Cologne violations, and all of this was swept under the board. I understand that it's difficult to regulate. However, with Executive Officer Gibson's son, this young man lives in a better world. And that's what we need. We need regulators that will say, we're going to find a way, using the tools we have, to let this young man live in a better world at the lake next door to his apartment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Davis, and after Mary Davis, John Allen.
Hi, good morning, Board. First time here, so thank you and happy Valentine's Day. Mary Davis here.
You have a pink card, by the way.
Yes, that's why I chose pink, actually. I didn't realize that there was a color-coded system. But anyway, I am a member of the Alpine Community Planning Group, but I am speaking today as a private citizen with deep concerns, several subjects, but primarily for Loveland. I am urging you to do whatever you can, whether it's a resolution of support to keep the reservoir at 30% or higher at all times for wildfire safety, environmental conservation, and again, past practices for a balance of beneficial use. I'm not sure if you know about the policy, but they when they drain it, they do a natural. There is no any kind of pipe system. They use a natural drainage system. Well, they did it when it was dry before it rained, and there was a 47% of water loss. And I personally feel that there may have been that in conflict with the California Constitution, Article 10, Section 2, which reads, the general welfare requires that the water resources of the state be put to beneficial use to the fullest extent of which they are capable, and that the waste or unreasonable use of unreasonable method of use of water be prevented, and that the conservation of such waters is to be exercised with a view to the reasonable and beneficial use in the interest of the people and the public welfare. And doing that when they could have waited a little bit of time until rain and had that dry, the comparative, it was very, they didn't waste the second time very much when they did the second time during the rain. Sorry if I'm rambling here. And the second part is Lake Hodges, and I'm very concerned, 105 years old. It's in dire need of replacement. Again, because of the mandates, the intentional lack of upkeep, they are now wasting water. And I feel, again, that is a violation of the California Constitution that they need to be held accountable to. I'm also concerned about Prop 1 in 2014, where there were $7 billion in bonds. I'm wondering what we have to show for that. That kind of money that we've spent, that I don't see any aqueducts or things getting built. I'm also concerned about the sewage. And for people coming here today, maybe it is or not in your jurisdiction, but we feel like that we have been preaching and screaming in the wind and not being heard, and people are frustrated with the government, and so we are turning to you for redress, and we hope you can help us, particularly with Loveland. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have quite a list there. Mr. John Allen, and after Mr. Allen, Karen Wood.
Good morning. Thank you, folks, for having us today. I'm here more as a regional recreational resource advocate and ecological resource advocate, former San Diego County Outdoor Champion of the Year, John Allen. I know some of you folks from other river parks and other activities that I've been involved with, very actively engaged in volunteering with the California Riding and Hiking Trail, San Diego River Park, the Sweetwater River Park, all the various agencies. So
Thank you.
really here regionally to support the efforts that we're all aware of and all, I think, agree with and support of these regional recreational access issues and corridors. We have the 3 river parks, we have, PCTs, things like that. We have access rights and easements and responsibilities. And again, multiple agencies, multiple governments, multiple layers, very confusing, very conflicting sometimes management policies. So definitely supporting, hopefully, this board's motion or support of motions to find those best management practices amongst all the players so that we have, right now we have 7-day access, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In some places, we have easements that protect that aren't being enforced or supported. We have other managers who have, Lake Jennings, for example, I can camp 7 days a week, I can fish 4 days a week, I can only walk around the lake 3 days a week. The hours vary and it's very hard to follow. The websites aren't updated regularly. Sweetwater Loop Trail was just promoted as open. It was asked, where's the trailhead? Nobody answers. Click a link, you go to the link, there's no answer there. So really just looking for some consistency that we want to encourage all the agencies and activists to get together and say, what is reasonable? What is rational? Along our rivers, along our waterways, around our reservoirs, what's the reason that we have some days closed, some days open, sunrise to sunset interpreted differently? The sun rises, the sun sets. Like, this shouldn't be so confusing as I'm walking down a California Riding and Hiking Trail or a PCT or a river park trail to cross jurisdictional boundaries and find closed gates with no trespassing signs and fee use areas and guaranteed easements and accesses that are closed and unenforced. And getting, I've been doing this 5 years now when I came across the Loveland issues. California Riding and Hiking Trail runs through there. It's very confusing, very conflicting, very hard for us as citizens trying to recreate responsibly, trying to enjoy nature. Help. Thank you.
Before you leave, since I know you and I've hauled a lot of trash out of the San Diego River and other places.
A lot of trash.
But it's not really related to what you just said, but I thought being a fisherman, you might know the answer. We talked about a lot of dead fish after they drained it. Do you know what varieties were there? And the focus of that is if there were endangered fish or, fish on the interested item list, it might give some leverage for protecting that
I
water.
personally am not a fisherman, Gary. I'm more the hiker, but I definitely
thought you-
encourage
I'm
and
sorry.
support. There is, I think, some speakers following who are more fishermen and
Okay, somebody else might be able to
yeah,
answer that.
have those answers for you. But thank you for asking, and again, thank you for all your efforts.
Or was Karen Wood next? I moved my cards around.
You got Karen Wood.
Oh, okay. I think we have 2 cards for you. Jesus Ariola.
Hi. So first, I want to thank you all for allowing us to be here today. I come here as not only a Loveland Reservoir advocate, but also an Alpine resident. I speak on behalf of me, my sons, and all my neighbors there. And I, ask if you can please support us and help manage Sweetwater Authority so that they never drain Loveland Reservoir to dead pool again. There is an agreement that they're supposed to honor that says that they would never drain it to dead pool. So when they did that, they illegally killed all the protected fish that are in there. And it's just that, I get that they did it to save the ratepayers' money and, all that stuff. And they look at Loveland Reservoir just like as a water reservoir, but to me and my sons and all my neighbors, that is our home. That is our home. We literally live there. We hike there, and whether, some of us fish for sport, and some of us, like me and my kids, we fish there for food. I feed my family when I catch those fish there. So now that they're gone, it's really weighing in on our family, and it's also, not only does it affect us, but it also affects all the other animals that rely on that water to be there, and it's not there. And the birds of prey, and just the long list of animals that rely on that ecosystem there. So we would really appreciate if you could please step in and help manage Sweetwater Authority so that they never drain it to Deadpool again. Thank you.
Question, do you happen to know what fish were in there?
Well, pretty much, I mean, I know the different species. There's bluegills, largemouth bass.
I hate largemouth bass. They eat everything. They're just pigs.
Catfish. So, I mean, in the state of California, like as a fisherman, I am not allowed to catch more than five bass. I'm not allowed to kill them. And literally, Sweetwater Authority killed millions of those fish illegally. So it's, and that's just one species of the other species that are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Avila, I think. I'm not sure I'm reading this right. Eric Avila. And then after Eric, we have Scott Swaley. I think it's going to be remotely. And is that it? That's it. So if there's anybody else who wishes to speak who has not filled out a card.
You might be misreading my name. I'm Anderson.
Is this Eric Anderson? Well, you only have 4 letters, Eric, for your last name.
Well, I think by now you've figured it out. You want me to talk?
So are you here for,
A quick comment, and probably it's an agenda.
is this, but hold on, we want to do Loveland first. Are you speaking
No,
on Loveland? Okay, let's wait till afterwards. Is there anybody else for Loveland? Okay, I want to thank you all for taking the time to come here and share your concerns with us. Balancing competing beneficial uses, and almost all beneficial uses find themselves in competition at some point or another, is always difficult. We've been at a time of scarcity. I think everybody knows that, although we did get a lot of rain most recently. But generally, we've been through some years of scarcity after decades of having a lot of water. We've enjoyed a lot of water. As we confront scarcity, we're going to see this bumping up of beneficial uses up against each other more and more and more. I really appreciate your dedication to the ecological and environmental values that a reservoir brings, because if we don't have people like you who value those aspects of it, our work becomes so much more difficult to convince people that these are things that we should protect and values that we should make investments in. I know there's a lot of misinformation and confusion because the laws are often confusing. So when it comes right down to trying to figure out how to thread this needle, it's not at all easy. So I share your frustration, and I can understand what brings you, what motivates you to come to try to seek resolution. As I understand it, Loveland is a reservoir that is a drinking water reservoir, and they manage it primarily as a drinking water reservoir, and historically that's, that is what it is. And we've been able to enjoy these other beneficial uses, but those may come and go. So we'll look at what your concerns are. They're not concerns we are unfamiliar with. No one likes to hear that their concerns are generic, but we're seeing the same kinds of conflicts and concerns in many, many, many reservoirs and lakes. So if it's any consolation, you're not alone. And as climate change continues to manifest itself, and it manifests itself first in water, we're going to see increasingly these kinds of conflicts where beneficial uses are going to be bumping up against each other, and painful trade-offs are, we're confronted with painful trade-offs. As to what our role can be here, I'm not exactly sure. We don't manage Sweetwater. They're an independent agency. We do not manage them. You manage them through your votes. And that's something, that's a process. I understand it's remote, it's difficult, but we don't manage them. But we do manage other things, permits and beneficial uses. So we have a relationship with them, obviously, but we don't tell them how to run their operation if it doesn't, unless it's specifically an implementation of a permit. That's just the limitations of our authorities. But thank you for bringing this information to us. I know you've spent a lot of energy, and the very fact that there's so many of you to show up on a Wednesday morning, confronting traffic, et cetera, taking time off your personal and work life to do so warms my heart and makes me very much appreciate your energies. And so don't ever stop doing that.
Chair Cantu, Mr. Swally is
Okay,
ready.
good. We can put him in remotely then. Thank you.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. I am a, I guess, accidental activist. Little context, I recently moved just north of Lake Hodges with my wife. We bought what we believed and still believe is a beautiful and perfect home in this small unincorporated community called Quiet Hills. And I have a beautiful creek on our property, small little thing, which we did a lot of research on before we bought this property, trying to see kind of what that entails. And very quickly after purchasing the property, our quiet little creek became a very raging river to the point that it started going under the foundation of our garage. It got relatively close to our house. And I say all this just as a little bit of context, because now that we've been in this home, I've worked a little bit with Escondido Neighbors United, and I'm here on my own today. But there are a number of issues related to what is Felicita Creek. So a lot of you might know Felicita Park, just north of Lake Hodges. And these issues range from things like the Chatham Brothers Barrel Yard that was a waste issue that people are still dealing with, and all these issues. There's also a development just north that has been putting more and more water into the creek. There is a enormous amount of erosion happening both in kind of our downstream part of the creek as well as the park. And I'm in the safety industry. We talk about Swiss cheese and kind of when all these different layers of Swiss cheese line up, eventually you can see all the way through them. And when we see something where we have known contamination in the ground, we have known increases in water flow, we have old communities full of old septic systems, we have aging water mains that have exploded 3 times just in the past 2 years, and all of this is right adjacent to a creek that the public uses at Felicita Park and goes through a number of properties. And so we did reach out, and I will say that we did get some feedback. Erica Ryan, Nicholas White, Kate Buckley came out on a tour with the county and the city of Escondido and were really friendly and supporting. And so we want to thank those people from the Water Authority that came out. And I think everyone that visited on that tour agreed that, well, yep, we do have an issue. What to do about it is less clear. And so what I'm hoping to do in this is not to address necessarily this huge issue of this entire watershed, but to bring it real small for a moment and say, there's the park, the Felicita County Park, and a small number of homes downstream that are having very, very significant erosion right now. We know it's happening. I'm not even interested in whose fault it is right now. I want to know, as someone in the community who wants these habitats to be preserved, who wants to be able to visit that park and also doesn't want my property destroyed, what are the kind of gold standards of what we should be doing? What are the ways that, given this erosion, this new world we live in, what are the, like, from a fluvial expert, what are the things we should be doing to deal with these enormous amounts of sand and debris that are deposited, as well as this continuing erosion? And again, not worried about whose fault it is, really just trying to say, can we get the help to figure out what to do in these cases?
Thank you very much. I think we're at time here. That's a pretty big ask, but we've logged it in. So thank you very much for calling in. Now, Mr. Anderson, you have an item on the agenda. This is not that item.
It's the one you requested last time about.
So that is not agendized. Yeah, Blue Babies. Let's get a reading on this. Mr. Anderson would like to speak to Blue Babies, not on this agenda, but something
Nitrogen standards, the same thing.
but could be agendized in the future. We'll get a reading on this.
I think it would be fine if Mr. Anderson spoke on that issue for a few minutes.
Okay, go right ahead.
Well, now that I'm not one of you, I get to speak my mind. And I think it's a real fraud that EPA is promulgating, and we have it in our records, peer-reviewed and everything like that, that the nitrogen standards are a fraud. Does not affect anybody. There's not one Blue Baby in the San Diego County or in the state. One or two in nationwide, but not because of nitrogen in wells, other reasons. Anyway, so they should be embarrassed and they should stop, because if the word gets out, the regulatory state will lose credibility, and boy, that's bad. Anyway, can I comment on the Loveland and the other guy, Hodges?
Well,
Loveland,
are you finished with Blue Babies?
Yeah.
We'll keep things organized.
yeah,
Okay.
unless, no, you don't know what to talk about. Anyway, Loveland, vote the bastards out. I'm going to run for OMWD.
Okay, no campaigning.
Okay, no, I know, but you can, and that's the best way to affect it. Sweetwater has 2 people appointed by the mayor, so elect a new mayor. There's 5 seats, not all up at once. So Sweetwater is kind of known to be a fiefdom in the county. They do whatever they want, and people go, what are they doing? And we wonder.
So now we're getting into editorial.
Yeah, okay. So on to the next thing. Hodges, good example of what you want to do to prevent exactly that. I had a friend named Don Boy. He passed away during the pandemic. He died of a heart attack on a wave. What a good way to go. And he built this huge 2 sets of rock waterfalls on his property. He had 2 adjacent properties. I'm going, Don, what is this all about? He goes, well, you should see it when it flows. Don Boy's property, which Pam lives there still, is a good example of a way to handle all that, because when that water comes down the hill, whoa, I mean, it is coming down, it's booking, and it is a big problem. Don Boy handled it beautifully, and his is a great model for BMPs. Just a thing. I can't resist it about editorializing. Anyway,
Thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, spelled with 4 letters.
RSOA. I just was hurried.
It's okay. We have one more card, but this card is only if an item is pulled from the agenda. So we'll wait and see if we get to that point. At this point, we've completed the public forum. Thank you very much. And we'll move into the rest of our board business. Item number 1 is the adoption of the minutes of December the 13th and December the 18th. Do we have a motion to take those together or separately?
I'll move approval.
Of both together, okay?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson? Aye. Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
Chair Cantu?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. We're now on item number 2. We're moving right along. Our state board liaison, Nicole Morgan, is unable to join us today, but we do understand that the vice chair of the State Water Board, Didi O'Donnell, can join us at 10:30. Is that right? Okay, so we're not at 10:30 yet. We did get a written report. If anybody had any questions about the written report in your packet, I think you can ask Ms. Adamo at 10:30. Are there any other reports or notices from the board that you would like to share before I ask our executive officer for any updates? None? Hearing none. We received an extensive executive officer's report, per usual, very comprehensive, with particularly focus this time on the Tijuana River flows and flows not in the Tijuana River and through the Pacific Ocean. Are there any updates to that executive officer's report or questions for our executive officer on that report?
I was trying to get to the right page, Dave, but I was looking at the firework permit. And there's a table, debris collected, table 2. Sorry. I guess just as a starting point, do these numbers surprise you? Is this what was expected? Where does this fall? Sorry to catch up.
Very
here.
large numbers.
It's on page 37, table 2.
The short answer to that question, Board Member Warren, is no, they don't surprise me. The longer answer is I think we need to have better controls, and the fact that they were able to capture and recover and measure that is an improvement over prior practices. Nonetheless, though, we are still faced with the trouble of a large amount of floating debris after the really big events like the Big Bay Boom.
Yeah.
Both the fact that it occurs at night and it's not very safe to have boats out there trying to gather up trash while you also have 500,000 people enjoying the bay at that time. So we are working with the enrollees. Among other things, for the Big Bay Boom, I am insisting that we have water quality monitoring that takes place during the 5-year period of that permit, and we'll continue to report back to the board on the trash and the waste removed from the events.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for our executive officer?
I just thought of this one day. When we had those discussions on the fireworks, there was some rumblings about the industry looking at changing some of the materials that were used, particularly the wires and that sort of thing. Is there any sense of any movement that direction where the residue from the fireworks is being changed at the source?
I'm not aware of any, Board Member Strawn. It could be that there are. As we continue to change the culture of fireworks events and emphasize more light shows, I think we'll see a reduction in some of the debris. We're now no longer the only region regulating fireworks. There's now a permit in South Lake Tahoe, a permit in Los Angeles, and I think we'll continue to see this probably end up, as we have before, informing state board to adopt a statewide permit on fireworks and lead the nation on that. The industry, though, I think is many years behind the curve in terms of waste reduction and management. And I think these efforts will help move it where it needs to be in order to be protective of land and properties and water quality.
Yeah, it might be too hard, but it'd be interesting to know what the content of all that residue is, how much of it is really toxic and how much is less so.
And that is a primary reason for requiring some monitoring with the San Diego Big Bay Boom in particular. That's a big event in the Bay and one that we ought to be able to measure an effect from if there is one.
Thank you.
A couple of things to add to the report, if it pleases the board. It's a very substantial report. I'd like to thank the staff, especially James Chor, Melissa Corona, and Vicente Rodriguez, who put together the 2 reports on border water quality. As I mentioned during the December 18th item, considering the time schedule order, impacts on receiving water is of importance to us. We looked at the issue over the summer. We get 2 reports from IBWC and the city of San Diego each year, one in June, one in December. Our review of the last year's and this June's report did not show a significant impact in receiving waters, but we felt it deserved a much closer look. So we did look at the December report very carefully. We met with the city of San Diego and reviewed their data. Mr. Chor has given you, I think, graphs and figures which I think tell the story, which is the monitoring is sensitive enough to pick up the uptick in turbidity and bacterial indicators around the ocean outfall. However, the issues of the ocean outfall are orders of magnitude less than what we see on the onshore conditions, which are of paramount concern. And those are a result of wastewater discharges and releases in Mexico that flow into the United States via the Tijuana River, which for the last year has had an almost unprecedented 30 to 40 million gallons per day of raw flow. We haven't seen that since the 1980s and the early 1990s before the IBWC treatment plant was built. Unfortunately, work that is being funded to update the system there has resulted in some releases and damage to that system. One of the older segments of the pipelines, Pipeline 1A, that pipeline is still not fully operational. We're rather concerned at the slowness of recharging that line and returning it to operations. The recent storms have not helped with that. We will continue to monitor this and track this. That report was closely reviewed by Cal EPA and the governor's office. They were very concerned in terms of the state, and I think we informed them quite a bit on what we know about the receiving waters, as well as about the issues at the treatment plant itself and the issues to address flows in the Tijuana River. I'd also like to take a moment to celebrate. Kristen Schwal has retired after 34 years at the Water Board. I came into her 10 years in her term. I've been pleased to serve with her for 34 years. We are really going to miss her expertise and her insights because she literally worked in every program in the office at least once, including the Basin Plan. So we really congratulate her on her retirement and wish her well. Fasaya Oshibodu and Ben Neal have assumed new roles in our office. Very pleased that they have taken over wastewater and are now working in recycled water, or stormwater rather. And Melissa Corona, as previously reported, is the point person for the MPDS program on the border issues. I'll remind the board and the public on State Board and EPA that focusing on the border issues as we are is going to come at a cost in some of the performance measures they would like us to do in terms of permit reissuance. So we're not going to meet all of our targets, as I previously reported, but we have to focus on one of our most urgent priorities, which is the border issue, and we can't do things cheap on that any longer. I've drawn from literally every unit in the office just about at one time or another on the border, and we're focusing our staff time and MPDS on that particular issue right now. So that's a key issue. I'd like to also welcome Heidi Fletcher and Vanessa Kakayan, scientific aides who've just joined us on our mission support unit. That work is critical to our being able to be scientists, engineers, and geologists and work in technical programs. Without mission support, we're not going to get much done. So we're really glad to have them working on some records management. And as I previously indicated, we are welcoming Kate Buckley, an environmental scientist working in our water quality restoration unit. I'm also pleased to report, it's not in the report this month because it was just released, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, our staff have authored a San Diego Bay sediment pollutants evaluation of contemporary ambient concentrations to inform water quality. This is a key question in California in terms of PCBs. So we have taken a big step out in terms of articulating the ambient conditions and the importance of achieving the sediment quality objectives through our cleanup efforts. So I think you will see this paper cited repeatedly in coming years. It is on our website, and I have a fact sheet for you if you're interested. I can pass that out during a break that summarizes our key findings from that. There is a substantial report here. I will also report that we are preparing the executive officer's report that was requested in December on the blue baby syndrome and the issues of nitrogen. I believe that we will have that available for you in March. In the meantime, though, I'm happy to take any additional questions if there are any. And if there aren't, I would also just like, if we still have anyone left from Loveland, I think they've already left. Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Chair Cantu. I just wanted to update the board that I have met with the Sweetwater Authority and conferred with the State Water Board Division of Drinking Water and the State Water Board Division of Water Rights. There is an interesting convergence and, as you pointed out, a competition at times in outcomes for the key beneficial uses of municipal water supply, aquatic habitat, and recreation. And in some case, I think was indicated today, subsistence fishing, fish consumption. While we don't have a regulatory hook per se on managing reservoir levels or reservoir to reservoir transfers, it is nonetheless a very interesting subject. So I do intend to convene a workshop of agencies to better understand how they manage their reservoirs, and not just Sweetwater Authority, but the City of San Diego, Vista Irrigation District, City of Escondido, as well as the wildlife agencies. In some cases, the transfers of water, for example, from Sutherland Reservoir to San Vicente, the discharge point, if you want to call it a discharge, is on California Department of Fish and Wildlife property in sensitive arroyo toad habitat. And there have been, I've been told by Fish and Wildlife, impacts from the timing and the nature of those releases. I hope to learn something and see if there are issues that we can bring to the board's attention in terms of outcomes and to facilitate a stakeholder discussion on how we can attain the best outcomes in terms of municipal water supply and water quality. Because when a reservoir is brought down to minimum pool, as Marina has, for example, and Sutherland often is, and Loveland was, we see harmful algal blooms and other concomitant issues with that. That doesn't mean, however, that the water right license has changed or that the basic water right, which is a pre-1914 right on the Sweetwater River, has changed. But there is something, I think, to be learned from this experience and maybe better practices that can be encouraged where that is practicable. While we don't have a surfeit of time to spend on this, I do intend to follow through with the stakeholders and to try to convene a discussion with Sweetwater Authority. I'm aware of several projects that they're working on that we'll be regulating them on and working with them with in order to maximize Sweetwater Reservoir. There are some repairs they have to do there, and I'll report to you on those as well as we go forward.
Dave, I'm sorry, just a quick question. Am I missing something, or do the folks who vote for the membership of the Sweetwater Authority not live anywhere near Loveland Reservoir?
In this case, the community of Alpine is well outside the service area for the districts that the Sweetwater Authority serves. And so in a sense, they feel disenfranchised, as it's been expressed to me. They don't get to vote for one of the members there. That, I think, is an opportunity for us to practice our values of transparency and leadership and stewardship, and to encourage the kind of conversation that can result in outcomes that are equitable and manageable, as well as deal with the reality that long-term climate change, long periods of drought punctuated by atmospheric rivers is what we have to manage going forward. And empty reservoirs, unfortunately, in that dynamic will be more often than not. We're blessed by a couple good years, but we can't count on them and bank on them indefinitely. Dr. Olson, thank you.
Yes, I wanted to ask, I don't think it was last summer, I think it was the summer before, the chair and I met with the San Diego Water Authority, and I think they mentioned that a very high percentage of their reservoirs were not in the best condition, and therefore they could not maintain them full. And so it is important when we're looking at beneficial uses to be able to maximize probably the height of the reservoir. And this may be something where groups can get together and appeal to the state. I realize right now the state's budget is in the red as opposed to the black, but it does seem to me that there may also be a federal ask to be able to maintain local reservoirs also.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Olson. I believe we were told that 50% of the local supply reservoirs, the dams, are compromised mainly by age. And as was mentioned this morning, Hodges is over 100 years old. It's a very old dam. El Capitan is also compromised, and so both reservoirs are releasing water downstream because they don't dare let them pool too deeply. I'm not aware that that's the same issue at Loveland. Sweetwater also has issues with their reservoir. That's some of the work that they're going to be taking on this year. But that is also a key factor in our long-term storage and local availability of water. When I used to work for a water department, I pointed out that while these reservoirs only comprise about 5% of our normal supply, they are 100% of our emergency supply. And there are 3 earthquake faults that potentially separate us from our key water supplies in the Colorado River and the State Water Project. So those long-term dam maintenance and management will be a priority. Right now, we don't have a regulatory question on that, but the City of San Diego, Sweetwater Authority, City of Escondido, and others are working on those questions. And I expect you'll see reports in the press and reports from us in coming years on the work to repair or restore those dams or replace them in some cases. So thank you very much. It was a very thick report this month. We have 3 months of heavy board meetings coming up, and I look forward to working with you on those and taking any questions you have. If not, that concludes my report.
Future agenda items out of order at this point. So we'll request, if you have any requests for future agenda items or recommended courses of action for our staff. Not that they have any free time. I was just kind of tallying up of all the things we're asking them to do where there is no revenue stream to pay or support a personnel year or full-time equivalency to do it. So many of the things that we were discussing today, there is no revenue stream behind it. There's no way they charge their time. So they're cannibalizing from some other program in order to spend any time at all in there. It's, it's very trying, but keeping that in mind, do you have any future agenda items you'd like to put on the docket? Mr. Gary shares the list. Gary.
Yeah. This could be a quick one. Once again, this year I did the homeless count along the San Diego River. The annual one, we do 3 or 4 a year, but the big one, it'll probably be another month or so before those results are in. I know what it was for the San Diego River. I suspect that there were other groups that focused on some of our other major watersheds. It would be interesting if we could have somebody come in for just a very quick presentation on what they found in terms of homeless counts relative to previous years. San Diego River was pretty much, I think, plus or minus 1 from the last couple of years. So even with all the wet weather, it didn't change much. But it would be interesting, I think, to this board to see what that is and if there's similar counts on Sweetwater or San Luis Reyes. Santa Margarita is kind of on the base, so that's probably not an issue. But some of the other major watersheds, be interesting. Thank you.
Along those same lines, there's been reports that are probably a couple of years old, maybe 3 years old now, looking at homeless, unhoused people encampments and the resulting water quality impacts attributed to those encampments. So reframing the issue not only as a human and health tragedy, but also a water quality challenge.
Yeah, there was and as part of our big ongoing study, but there was a preliminary one done by San Diego State on that project where they went in, looked at where the camps were, and then tested kind of before and after, upstream, downstream, that kind of thing. The results were interesting, but it would be basically it's not what you think. There wasn't any result, but they can identify. But it would be interesting to have that brief.
Thank you, Board Member Strawn, and for the audience benefit as well as the boards. That study was actually prompted by the regional board in its partnership with the San Diego River Conservancy and San Diego State. It echoes a similar report was done in the early 1990s on immigrant encampments on the East County. In the end, again, the results were interesting and sometimes difficult to pin down with bacterial indicators, but it was informative. The issues there are substantive, and even in the hours before the big storm came through, I was hearing reports of 30 to 40 people who were camping on an island in the San Diego River underneath Interstate 5 who would not leave. That island was not 13 feet tall. So there's a great deal of concern for public safety as well as water quality. And tragically, at least 3 people in the San Diego River and Forester Creek lost their lives due to rapidly rising flows. So we will look into that. If you have any suggestions offline as to who we can contact to get that information, that would be helpful. We have worked closely with the San Diego River Park Foundation. I can reach out to the county, but sometimes having a direct contact will bring the information forward more easily. I propose an executive officer's report, and we can invite 1 or 2 people to speak briefly on that if it pleases the board. And if there's enough material there, we can agendize it.
That sounds great. Thank you. We'll help in identifying people to come in and do the work for you.
I'll get you that name from We All Count.
Chair, Didi Adamo is with us now.
Oh, great. Well, we were trying to stall, and it worked out beautifully. So let's invite Vice Chair of the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board, Didi Adamo. Hi, welcome.
Hi, it's good to see you all. I was able to get out of my other meeting a little early, so joining in sooner than expected. Chair and board members, I'm providing a report today because board member Nicole Morgan has other engagements today. And so I'll just start off by talking a little bit about the governor's budget. And so the governor announced the $291 billion state spending plan on January 10th. And of course, I'm sure you all are following this, if not in great detail, at least aware of the deficit that we have now. The state is facing an estimated $37.9 billion deficit. There are other estimates that are out there using, different metrics. Legislative Analyst's Office has a higher number at 68 billion. And as part of the governor's budget, our agency, Cal EPA, has a proposed budget that includes $5 billion. But as part of that, the governor is proposing $489 million of general fund solutions to address the deficit. And that is through various reductions, delays in spending, funding shifts, and reversions to the general fund. And so what I'm going to do is just highlight a couple of key areas that the regional boards have been working on very closely along with the state board that could be affected by this. So first, or that there might be concerns about whether or not the budget deficit would affect resources. So first of all, on the Sackett decision, and this is Sackett versus EPA that significantly narrowed, a U.S. Supreme Court decision that significantly narrowed the reach of the Clean Water Act. We've talked a lot about this at the chairs meetings that we have periodically at WQCC. And we've had much dialogue with the regional boards, noting that California is well positioned to maintain wetlands protections, due in large part because of the adoption of our wetlands procedures several years ago. But that is going to involve a significant amount of additional resources and management of existing resources. The budget does include $6.1 million in the Waste Discharge Permit Fund and $24 million in additional funds ongoing for the water boards to conduct essential activities to protect the waters of the state. And that's for the water quality permitting and enforcement work that had previously been conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and U.S. EPA. And then on water recycling, the budget does maintain $348 million that was previously allocated to water recycling and groundwater cleanup, with a proposed reversion of $174 million of general funds and a delay of $100 million until 2025-26 for these programs. And then work on PFAS and PFOA. The budget does maintain $53 million previously allocated, with a reversion of $71 million of general funds and a reduction of $30 million in 2024-25 PFAS and PFOA support. And then moving on to a couple of announcements here. We are engaging in a wastewater needs assessment and a statewide wastewater needs assessment, utilizing very much the approach that we did for safe drinking water, where prior to the disbursement of the additional funds that we received through the Safer Drinking Water program, we had a statewide needs assessment in order to best determine how to prioritize funding. And that needs assessment has proven to be a very useful tool for us through the Division of Drinking Water and Division of Financial Assistance. We are embarking on a similar statewide wastewater needs assessment for the wastewater program that we have, and looking to, of course, use this information to obtain additional funding and to be strategic with respect to the funding that we have. There is a advisory group that we are forming, and we are accepting applications through February 29th. And so we're just encouraging anyone that might be interested in being part of this really exciting and useful effort to apply. There are links to the advisory group application and participation expectations on the California Water Board's WWNA Wastewater Needs Assessment public web page. It's in English and in Spanish, and additional language services can be provided through the Office of Public Participation if needed. And then just yesterday, the Drinking Water Advisory Program for the Safer Drinking Water Program met. That was the first meeting in 2024. And this advisory group advises our board, as I indicated, on the Safer Fund expenditure plan and other key analyses and policies as needed. At our last board meeting, we did something that we always do at the beginning of the year, and that is we received information update on our strategic work plan, and we collectively as a board were able to discuss our priorities and strategic work plan for 2024. The plan that we forwarded includes several key strategies. It's posted on our website, but specifically for 2022, it is going to be a very busy year, slating for adoption of the maximum contaminant level for Chrome 6, implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. We have 6 basins that have been forwarded to the state board for consideration of probationary status, which our role is sort of a backstop if local planning for sustainable groundwater management doesn't meet the guidelines as established by the Department of Water Resources. They forward those basins and those plans to state board for potential consideration of probationary status. And so we actually have a hearing coming up in April for the first one. We'll be quite busy with that work this year. And then moving forward on the consideration of the Bay Delta Plan update, and there are lots of activities going on there. We had several workshops on the plan that was the staff plan rolled out by our staff last year. And we expect to be announcing some workshops coming up soon so that we can learn more about something called a voluntary agreement. And the voluntary agreements are proposals that public water agencies have put together, proposing additional flows for fisheries, but also a combination of other activities, including restoration work. And so we're excited about the opportunity to learn more about these other potentially innovative approaches. Also at our meeting last week, we adopted California's 2024 Clean Water Act Section 303D list, which includes listings and delistings for half of the water boards, half of the regional water boards in this cycle. It did include San Diego region, as well as San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Santa Ana and Central Coast. That final list can be found online through the program page, along with a summary of comments and response to comments, and will be forwarded to US EPA later this spring. And I just really want to thank the board, Executive Officer Gibson and staff. It's been, I think, really useful to be able to improve upon the processes that we had in the past, where we, had some missed deadlines, and this other approach, we're working collaboratively with the regional boards, but having it go directly to the state board has allowed us to be able to meet these important deadlines. But we did talk at the adoption hearing about the importance of improving upon that process and seeing what could be done to provide for greater transparency for the public and earlier release of documents so that we could have greater public input. And so I really look forward to hearing from all the regional boards about, how we could best improve that process, but at the same time, meet the important deadlines that have been established under the Clean Water Act. And then an update on some key initiatives under the governor's water supply strategy. This strategy that was announced last year, and really looking at how do we address the climate change and a hotter, drier future, and looking at just improving local resiliency and local portfolio options for water supply. And a couple of key areas that I know are really important to the region, to the San Diego region. One is on desalination. So on December 20th, our staff released the final seawater desalination siting and streamlining report to expedite permitting. And this was following a public comment period. That report outlines important considerations and best practices for seawater desalination proponents so that as they move forward on planning projects, looking at what would possibly be permitted more efficiently by state and federal agencies. Our board convened a seawater desalination interagency group comprised of state and federal agencies that review environmental documents and permit or lease applications for proposed seawater desalination facilities. And then a strike team identified criteria for siting seawater desalination projects so that they are cost effective and environmentally appropriate, and recommended potential changes to the current requirements that we have in order to better streamline permitting. And then we do expect that that strike team will be releasing a list of potential projects later this year. And then on stormwater, another key component of the governor's water supply strategy, the Division of Water Quality staff initiated a contract with the Office of Water Programs at Sacramento State. This will be to develop a method to estimate the current stormwater volume amounts using open source tools. This project will also begin to establish an inventory of stormwater capture infrastructure throughout California. And we're expecting that this will be, really important work so that it can better inform us about opportunities that are out there to really expand on stormwater capture. Work under this contract will begin in April and to be completed by June of 2026. And then a couple of key areas that I know you're all focused on very much. First of all, direct potable reuse. At our hearing in December, at our board meeting on December 19th, we adopted the regulation that provides for standards and process for direct potable reuse projects. This was just, what a milestone for us collectively at the state water boards. And that regulation will continue through the Administrative Procedures Act process before final adoption in July of this year. And then I think I mentioned Chrome 6. Our staff is working on response to comments, and they did find a need to post some additional documents. So we have just a brief 15-day comment period for these additional comment documents that were posted, and comments for that will close on the 19th of February. Staff will then be providing response to those comments, and we anticipate this will be coming before us for adoption at our first meeting in April. And that's all I have for you. Oh, wait, sorry. One last thing. I wanted to provide an update on our water use efficiency schedule. So we are poised at this point to provide, staff is working on some additional significant revisions to the outdoor standard for water use efficiency. And they had released a draft last year, and we had a couple of workshops, very intense interest in this process from water suppliers throughout the state. And we had one workshop in particular that went into very late into the evening. And so we had a lot of information and a lot of participation. And then, took that information back and did some additional briefings. And we do expect that staff will be releasing a updated version and providing for, an additional comment period and an additional workshop. We're working to see if we can get this to us for our consideration in July. And at that point, it would be submitted to the Office of Administrative Law, and the rulemaking would be effective on January 1. There's a lot of concern out there about the effective date taking place immediately. And so these are issues that, we're trying to sort through. How can we best meet the multiple goals of, reducing water use, providing greater water use efficiency, but then also very mindful of the process that would be involved in order to implement the rule. And so looking to make some adjustments on that, as well as appropriate variances and appropriate flexibility for communities that would be challenged economically, in particular, looking at impacts on disadvantaged communities and how we can make adjustments so that they can participate in the program, but still have some needed flexibility. So with that, that's my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Board Member Adamo. Any questions? That was a very comprehensive report. I have not a question, but a comment. When I was reviewing the 2024 high priority actions, I was really struck about how many of those listed were the same ones from 20 years ago, but that they are so much more intense today. So the topics are basically the same, being led by Chrome 6, which is not new, but the challenges associated with their implementation and resolution are just way more complicated and complex today than what they were 20 years ago. Climate change being part of that, increased science informing us so that we have a better understanding, and then the cost of everything going, up. It's just when we see the same topics, but with the challenges growing, it's really rather daunting. You have a very ambitious 2024 strategic plan, or I guess it's a strategic work plan, high priority work plan.
Right. And one thing to point out also is that what's not on that plan is just the daily work, the work that goes on behind the scenes at the state.
You're still doing that work too, yeah.
Of course, yeah, and you are too. And so in partnership. And so, yeah, it is not a comprehensive list. What we're looking at really is targeting, trying to be disciplined. And Chrome 6 is a really good example. We had an offsite meeting several years ago, and it's interesting that even though Chrome 6 adopting an MCL, had been a priority for the board for years, we just got this sense of frustration that a lot of us had, and really directing our staff, this needs to get across the finish line. And I think that the strategic work plan has been helpful in that regard. Really looking at several key areas where we expect work to be done this year. Bay Delta Plan is a good example of that, a multi-decades process that as we go forward to look at solutions, the complexity just expands because of all of the challenges that we see, in that watershed. As you mentioned, Chair, about, climate change and the challenges there, and then incorporating that into the process. And so, I don't think we're going to adopt a Bay Delta plan this year, but it is top priority to advance the process. And we're hoping to be able to adopt the plan the following year.
Great. Okay, moving right along. Thank you very much, and give Nicole our very best.
Will do. I'm going to just sit quietly and follow part of your meeting while I've got some time in between the schedule. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
Since I'm no longer a board member, I want to thank you and the state board for all your efforts and assistance. When Celeste Cantu started as the CEO of back when I first started, it was more of a command control. We went up and you told us what to do. And now it's much more collaborative. You empower the regions much better, still some ways to go, to do things. And I especially want to thank you for your role in helping us with the ag thing, Dee Dee. I could not believe, why was she interested in ag? I guess we have a special place in your heart. And besides, we all eat. Thank you, Dee Dee.
Dee Dee is ag. That's why she's interested in ag.
I didn't know that. She lived in San Francisco.
Thank you.
It's not in her resume.
We are celebrating citizen Eric Anderson today. A little bit later in the agenda, you'll see, we're celebrating his 23 years of service.
Congratulations. Thanks for your comments. Good to see you.
We're now at our consent calendar. Items 3, MPDES permit amendment number Region 9, 2022-0005, and 2024-0005, and the waste discharge requirement goes on for the South Coast County Wastewater Authority discharge to the Pacific Ocean, and item number 4, rescission of waste discharge requirements for the percolation ponds for craft stones in Ramona. This is on the consent agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to pull this from consent agenda?
No, but is this what you had a comment on?
It is. The comment was only in the case that it was pulled from consent.
Thank you.
Is that still true? Amber Baylor, where are you, Amber? There you are. Yes. Oh, hi. Thank you. It sounds like it will not be pulled. So I'll call for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A lot of seconds. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
And Chair Cantu?
Aye. Motion carries. Our next agenda item is expected to last probably 90 minutes. It's a major item, so I think we're going to have a short break in advance of that. So let's reconvene here at 10:25. Let's reconvene. Take our seats. We're back in session. Our next item is item number 5, second revised cease and desist order, Region 9, 2024-0008, United States Marine Corps, Las Pulgas landfill. And we have a presentation starting with Dave Gibson. Are you the one to start with? Not certain here.
Good morning,
Okay.
Chair Cantu and members of the board. For your information, myself, Andrew Sauerwein, and Sasha Smierinski, who is attending remotely, are your advisory team. We're prepared to offer you a recommendation at the conclusion of the item and answer any questions if you have some. Thank you.
Thank you. For this matter, we have a separation of functions as our executive officer just described. The interested parties in this matter include the United States Marine Corps. Prior to today's hearing, we issued an order of proceedings, which included the order of presenters and time limits for comments. The prosecution team will present first and have a total of 30 minutes. And then the United States Marine Corps will have 30 minutes to make a presentation. And then public commenters may have 3 minutes each. The parties may reserve their time for follow-up comments and closing remarks. At this time, I administer the oath to all persons intending to testify on this matter. If you are here in person or attending virtually via Zoom, please raise your right hand and answer "I do" after I read the oath. See some hands? Good. Do you swear the comments you are about to give are the truth? And I suppose the Zoomies, we've heard some "I do's" from over there too. Thank you very much. You may lower your hands. Before you address the board, please state your name and whether or not you've taken the oath. Today's order of proceedings will begin with the prosecution team. So Frank Melbourne will be the Water Resource Control Engineer, will be our first presenter. Is that right, Frank?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is item 5. Can you hear me? This is item 5, a tentative cease and desist order for the United States Marine Corps for the Las Pulgas landfill at Camp Pendleton in San Diego County. My name is Frank Melbourne. I will be informing the board this morning on behalf of the prosecution team, and I have taken the oath. Prosecution team members are identified in the order of proceedings, and they also have taken the oath. Board staff, through site inspections and document reviews, identified several concerns at the landfill that could harm water quality and beneficial uses. First, the integrity and functionality of the waste management units due to construction issues and damage to the liner system during construction activities. Exposure of waste due to poor landfill maintenance and stormwater management, and discharges of leachate to surface waters due to poor stormwater management, and also to groundwater due to construction issues and liner damage. The solution here is adoption of the cease and desist order. A cease and desist order is the appropriate enforcement response here, but before I go over the details of the cease and desist order, I'll provide you some background. I'll explain how the landfill is constructed, where the waste management units are located, and how they function. I will cover what leachate is and how leachate is created, and also how it is managed and how stormwater is managed at the landfill also. I'll cover the permitting of the landfill and the alleged violations of those permits and 8 notice of violations that were issued over the past 2 years that document staff's concerns. In regard to the tentative order, board staff held multiple productive meetings with the Marine Corps to better understand the issues, and to be able to draft a workable cease and desist order. The tentative order was publicly noticed, and we received written comments from the Marine Corps as well as from one member of the public. Prosecution team responded and recommended revisions to the tentative order, thus resulting in the second revised tentative order before you today for consideration. I'll conclude with details of the second revised tentative order, which provides the Marine Corps with the steps to comply with the waste discharge requirements as well as applicable laws and regulations. This enforcement action, this cease and desist order, is necessary. Yes, we had productive meetings with the dischargers, and yes, there have been site-wide improvements. However, we've documented years of non-compliance through the notices of violation, which demonstrate the Marine Corps' inability to manage the landfill without board input. The cease and desist order is needed now. Before we get into the details of the tentative order, let's orient ourselves. The landfill resides in the center of Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, and Camp Pendleton is in coastal North San Diego County. And you can see Interstate 5 is there on the left. Landfill is in the San Juan hydrologic unit, and I've identified the landfill with a star. And it's in the San Onofre hydrologic area and the Las Pulgas hydrologic subarea. Stormwater runoff from the landfill discharges into a tributary of Las Flores Creek, which is located within Las Pulgas Canyon. And then the Las Flores Creek then discharges into the Pacific Ocean. Here are the beneficial uses of the ground and surface waters at the landfill. And I've highlighted in blue the groundwater beneficial uses because it is important to recognize that the base is a sole source aquifer, meaning that base residents are dependent upon and use the groundwater, and there are no reasonably available alternative drinking water sources should the aquifer become contaminated. This is an image of the landfill, and the landfill only accepts municipal waste generated at the base and does not include ammunition or radioactive materials. The landfill is comprised of 3 existing units where waste is stored. These units include the legacy unit in green in the center, which is the original 40-acre unlined footprint of the landfill, and the phase 1 unit in red, and the phase 2 unit in yellow. Note that the phase 1 unit has a portion that is under construction. A key difference between the waste management units is that phase 1 and 2 have an engineered liner system, while the older legacy unit is unlined. An engineered liner system prevents the release of leachate to the soil beneath the landfill and ultimately to the groundwater. Leachate is the liquid created by the decomposition of waste. As the liquid moves through the waste, the liquid can pick up pollutants harmful to humans and the environment. The phase 1 and 2 units are also equipped with the leachate collection and removal system, also known as LCRS. The leachate collection and removal system drains generated leachate into 2 tanks that are located outside of the waste footprint, and you can see those 2 tanks in the bottom right of the image. Periodically, the contents of the leachate tanks are pumped and trucked away for treatment at a wastewater treatment plant on the base. Next to the tanks is the stormwater detention basin that collects and stores stormwater runoff from the landfill. During heavy periods of rain, the basin is designed to overflow into Las Flores Creek. Let's dig into the landfill's past. The landfill has a long and complex history. Operations began in 1971. The board adopted the landfill's first waste discharge requirements in 1974 and has continued regulatory oversight. Phase 1 was constructed in 1999. In 2000, the board issued waste discharge requirements that memorialized the liner design, and phase 1 became operational. In 2010, the board adopted the current waste discharge requirements that updated landfill requirements, including liner design. In 2012, Phase 2 was built. Unfortunately, in 2017, there was a failure of the side slope liner system in Phase 1. Afterwards, the discharger investigated the failure and proposed corrective actions to repair the damage. In 2021, the waste discharge requirements were amended to include requirements for the repair of Phase 1. Phase 1 was reconstructed, or Phase 1 reconstruction began in late 2021. More bad news in 2022 as the liner in Phase 2 was damaged during Phase 1 reconstruction. Board staff conducted site inspections and issued 3 notices of violation. The alleged violations were for oversight failings of the Phase 1 reconstruction, specifically the failure to have an independent third-party construction quality control observer, damage to Phase 2, and the failure to construct according to the corrective action plan. Additionally, there were issues with failing to submit reports required under the waste discharge requirements. In early 2023, there were several large storm events resulting in higher than normal amounts of rainfall. Typically, it takes several days or weeks for a landfill to dry out enough to make repairs after significant storm events. Unfortunately, the storms were so close together that the landfill became saturated from precipitation and stormwater runoff, resulting in an overproduction of leachate and, unfortunately, leachate discharges to receiving waters. In response, board staff conducted site inspections and issued 5 notices of violation. Board staff documented exposed waste, flooding and erosion. However, worst of all were the unauthorized discharges of leachate to receiving waters. I previously showed you the slide with the image of the landfill. As I just mentioned, one of the main issues at the landfill was related to the overproduction of leachate. During the heavy storm events, the landfill produced millions of gallons of leachate. Although leachate is typically produced in a landfill through decomposition of waste and when rain percolates through the waste, during these storm events, rainfall was entering directly into Phase 1's exposed leachate collection and removal system, where it commingled with the leachate. The leachate collection and removal system is designed to handle leachate generated by decomposition and percolation, but not leachate commingled with stormwater runoff. Therefore, the leachate collection and removal system was overwhelmed and discharged into the stormwater detention basin that then overflowed into the receiving water on several occasions in 2023. The failure to properly oversee construction, the damage to Phase 2 during the Phase 1 reconstruction, the exposed waste, and the leachate discharges indicated to board staff that the discharger didn't have a grasp on landfill operations, and we were very concerned. Ultimately, the case was brought to the board's compliance oversight group and assigned to the compliance assurance unit for enforcement. Prior to the referral, over the last 7 years, board technical staff worked with the Marine Corps to address the following issues: the Phase 1 reconstruction, specifically the construction quality assurance oversight, site maintenance, and stormwater management. Board staff conducted numerous inspections, held monthly meetings with the Marine Corps, and issued these notices of violations. However, those efforts were not enough to bring the landfill into compliance with the waste discharge requirements. Board staff lost confidence in the Marine Corps' ability to complete construction of Phase 1, repair Phase 2, and operate the landfill. Therefore, staff turned to the enforcement process to pave the path to compliance. Additional meetings were held with Compliance Assurance Unit staff and Office of Enforcement Counsel to get the information necessary to draft a workable cease and desist order. The tentative order and this hearing were publicly noticed, and we received comments from the Marine Corps and from one member of the public. The prosecution team produced a response to comments report summarizing the comments received the prosecution team's response, and whether changes were made to the tentative order in response to the comments. The report is your document 6 in your agenda package. Briefly, both commenters requested that there be flexibility for deadlines in the cease and desist order. We agreed and added language to the second revised tentative order that gives the executive officer the ability to review written discharge or requests for additional time that may be granted if the executive officer deems the request reasonable. The remainder of the discharger's comments sought to delete or clarify language in the tentative order. There were several instances where the prosecution agreed and recommended changes to the language to provide clarification. And these changes can be found in the second revised tentative order. So first and foremost, the cease and desist order requires the Marine Corps to stop accepting waste at Las Pulgas landfill. The Marine Corps will divert waste to the San Onofre landfill, which is the other municipal landfill owned and operated by the Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton. The waste disposal operations at Las Pulgas landfill must be ceased until the Marine Corps can show 3 things. The first and second requirements are that the landfill's stormwater conveyance system and leachate collection and removal system can handle 100-year storm events such that there are no discharges of leachate to the environment. The third requirement is that the Phase 1 and/or the Phase 2 units are certified by the board after they have been evaluated and repaired or reconstructed. Then and only then will the landfill be allowed to accept waste. To address the stormwater management issues and to protect water quality, the Marine Corps will need to obtain coverage and implement the construction stormwater permit for the Phase 1 reconstruction, and then implement the industrial stormwater permit for the remainder of the landfill. The third step of the cease and desist order is for the Marine Corps to propose a plan to investigate the causes of the leachate discharges by evaluating the stormwater conveyance system and the leachate collection and removal system, as well as the management of the 2 systems to determine why violations documented in the notices of violation occurred. The fourth step is for the Marine Corps to propose a plan to evaluate the integrity of the engineered liner systems in the Phase 1 and Phase 2 units. The fifth step is for the Marine Corps to document and report to the board the results, findings, and conclusions of their investigation. The sixth step is for the Marine Corps to develop and submit corrective action plans to the board for review and consideration. The corrective action plan describes the work in Phase 1 and 2 to bring the landfill into compliance with the requirements of the waste discharge requirements and the cease and desist order, along with a detailed implementation schedule. Step 7 is a final report documenting that all corrective actions have been completed. Leachate discharges have been eliminated. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been repaired or reconstructed. And the stormwater conveyance system and leachate collection and removal system have been repaired and or upgraded. The inclusion of a reopener clause is part of staff's balancing a workable enforcement order that still compels compliance without being draconian. The discharger can accept waste in a waste management unit prior to the completion of the task under the order if it has eliminated the leachate discharges and that the waste management unit has been certified. If the board finds that completion of the remaining corrective actions has stalled, then the board can issue a notice to the Marine Corps that the right to accept waste will be revoked within 60 days unless the deficiencies are rectified. This will keep the discharger on the straight and narrow and prevent backsliding. If it doesn't, the next step would be to revoke the waste discharge requirements. However, if all goes well and the board confirms that all corrective actions have been completed, as well as all other terms of the cease and desist order, then the board will issue a no further action to conclude the enforcement action. Adopting this cease and desist order will compel the Marine Corps to comply with the waste discharge requirements for the landfill. The order provides the path forward to accomplishing tangible tasks in a logical manner, such as ceasing leachate discharges through the proper management of the stormwater conveyance system and the leachate collection and removal system, finishing the reconstruction in phase 1, repairing the damage in phase 2, and obtaining certification for each of the phases. While the Marine Corps would rather receive a cleanup and abatement order or no enforcement order at all, adoption of this cease and desist order is the appropriate enforcement response because under the laws of the state of California, the Marine Corps is prohibited from operating a landfill with waste management units that are not fully constructed. Therefore, ceasing the acceptance of waste at the landfill is required until one or both lined waste management units are certified by the board. This enforcement action will spur the Marine Corps to build waste management units that will accept waste and protect the environment and human health. I recommend adoption of the second revised tentative order. That concludes the prosecution team's presentation, and I reserve the remainder of our time for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Commander Ramsey. Oh, I probably should have asked for questions. Are there any questions?
These may be better for the discharger, but if there's phase 1 opened for waste storage in 2000. Has the definition of municipal trash changed from 2000 to 2024, or what it would accept? Has that evolved over time?
I'm not aware that has changed.
Okay. And then is there a discharge from the legacy unit that the board is monitoring as well?
The board does monitor the legacy unit as part of the operation at the landfill. So yes.
But there's no associated violations with the legacy unit?
No.
Thanks.
Any other questions for prosecution? Okay, thank you. Commander Ramsey. Oh, okay, fine. At whatever order you wish, just identify yourself and whether or not you've taken the oath.
Good morning, board, staff. I'm Captain Jeff Richer. I'm the regional engineer for the Marine Corps. And our region in particular spans all the way from Northern California all the way down to Yuma, Arizona. I have not taken the oath, but I am willing to. I wasn't aware that I was somebody who
Would you
should.
please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, thank you all for the last couple of years. The staff has been incredibly helpful. Working with the board and the staff has revealed quite a bit of information, and they have been very helpful in the development of the cease and desist order. The meetings that we've had, the site visits have all been very helpful. It's clear to me and to my staff that this board cares very much about the environment and making sure that all residents of the environment are good stewards. And I think that I share, or I at least want to relay that we, in representing the Marine Corps, we share that same commitment to ensuring that the right thing is done here and that this is resolved quickly and as expeditiously as possible. Today, I've brought with me several folks. So I've got Commander Ramsey. He's the Public Works Officer for Camp Pendleton, so is eminently qualified to discuss everything that we've been going through with the board over the past 18 months, approximately. I also have brought Dr. Jeff Paul. He is our Director of Environmental Services. He also has a couple folks with him, Mr. Andy Enting, who is an expert in our landfill. I also have Major Dan Sherman, who is active duty military and in charge of this initiative. I also brought Mr. John Davis, who is our Director for the Western Area Council Office. And then also counsel for him is Mr. Pat Utes, who is specifically working on this project. At this point, like I said, since Commander Ramsey is eminently qualified to discuss everything that we've been dealing with here, I'm going to turn the floor over to him.
Madam Chair, Board, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I am willing to take the oath.
Oh, you have not yet taken.
I have not.
Your hand is raised. Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do. Thank you. All right. I am the Public Works Officer for Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, and I'll go into the presentation. Going back This is the overview, a very similar slide. Thank you to Google Maps for presenting the overall landfill. The phase one construction, I've simplified it a little bit to show the key pieces of this. The phase one construction is indicated in red. The blue shaded area is the maximum extent of accumulation of water in the bottom of that area. That phase one construction area is sloped the wrong way. It is a 16-acre catchment area right now. And you can see the approximate path in dotted red of the leachate collection and removal system. That's an underground, it's a large French drain, effectively, and ending at the leachate tanks in the sedimentation basin at the bottom. The leachate collection system is common to phase 1 and 2. It travels from phase 1 through the body of the phase 2 landfill and then ends up down in the tanks below. The concrete stormwater V-ditch is in blue. That is a perimeter brow ditch, and it collects water coming off of the surrounding hillsides, not from the landfill itself, eliminating runoff from the surrounding hillsides. But during the winter 2022-23, when we conducted emergency pumping operations to dewater the phase 1 construction site, we pumped to that location and it flowed down to our sedimentation basins. All right, so this is a picture from last fall, or I'm sorry, last winter or springtime. In the middle of our NOVs, you can see we are standing at location number 1, which is indicated right up there, at the foot of the landfill, looking at the sump, down to where the LCARS leachate collection system collects and moves under you. The leachate collection system is underneath the small puddle of water there, and throughout the winter we had dewatering pumps on site, moving the water out of the landfill as best we could, under the theory of harm mitigation that it was better to have moved the water out of the landfill rather than allowing it to transit through the body. This is a problem. We received, as Mr. Melbourne indicated, we received multiple NOVs as a result of back-to-back atmospheric rivers. At the first level, this is a problem in 2 levels. The proximate cause is this is an unusually challenging construction project for us. Our contractor, and I realize that we bear complete and total responsibility for this alone. Our contractor had struggled to obtain appropriate cover soil for the landfill in the fall of 22, and which caused us to suspend work on the project while we resolved that engineering difficulty. When we suspended work on that project, that left the landfill in an incomplete condition rather than finishing the construction project, and exposed us to a stormwater risk that at the time we collectively and I personally did not fully recognize the seriousness with what was about to happen. The root cause of this is a conceptual shift. Landfills are close oversight projects. They're not typical projects. We do approximately 1,000 construction projects a year on board Camp Pendleton, something like 120,000 work orders a year with a large staff. Most of these projects we manage at arm's length, and 95% of them go fine, and the 5% that are not, we dive in on and work our way out of. There are some projects that are no-fail ideas. They're no-fail missions. In the Navy world, like shipyard cranes are a good example, or nuclear projects are a good example. There are no nuclear material or projects on Camp Pendleton, just by the way, but I have worked on such projects before. And about April, we had a conceptual shift. I said, this is not a normal project. This is a nuclear project. And at that point in time, we began engaging very heavily with the regulator, with the board staff, and we began our monthly meeting drumbeat. We began, preparing detailed work plans and treating it like it was a nuclear project. And from that point forward, we began making forward progress and received only one violation after that conceptual shift, and that was from Tropical Storm Hillary, which caught me before I could fix the actual, before we could watertight the landfill. So beginning with that, landfill projects are close oversight projects. I've learned that lesson the hard way, And I will not let that lesson go, nor will any of my staff. We'll call it a lesson learned. So beginning in the summer, we adopted serious measures. So this is what serious measures look like on the ground. Serious measures, we installed a winterization liner in the course of the last 2 months, which is 16 acres of 40 millimeter polyurethane plastic, or high density polyurethane, physical samples of which are right here. I believe they got passed through. There's a sample of that, both of the regular material as well as the hot seamed lined material, so you can see the joints that are there. It's ballasted down, it's completely watertight. We've checked it with air pressure underneath in order to ensure water tightness, at every seam. It has survived a major rainstorm on the 22nd of January. It was watertight on the 20th of January and survived a major rainstorm on the 22nd, and then 9 inches of rain, at the landfill site over the course of the last 10 days. And the LCARS is dry. We pumped 8,000 gallons, a mere 8,000 gallons of leachate out of the system and properly disposed of it in our wastewater treatment plant during and after this most recent storm events. And that is, I consider that success as far as ending the leachate production, the major leachate production problem. This leachate, or this winterization liner, was installed over top of the liner which is under construction. So this liner is not intended to be is purely a sacrificial structure that will get us through the leachate production problem, buy us time to complete the construction project, to resolve the deficiencies, which we fully recognize that are out there at the landfill, and move on and return ourselves to the board's confidence. The cost of this right here is not insignificant. The original liner construction project was $5.5 million. This winterization liner was approximately $4 million, just on top of that. And we still have more work to do on it. So I'll go to resolving the deficiencies. Las Pulgas, we expect to receive the tentative cease and desist order. It will no longer be tentative, after this meeting, and we fully support that. We have erred in this regard, and we're looking forward to working with the board and with the board staff to resolve all the deficiencies out on the site. We have already ceased operations at Las Pulgas. It's shut down as of now. We're receiving waste at San Onofre, and that's a completely separate permit. It's a completely separate set of situations. There's no construction going on out there. Our environment, our stormwater permit is in progress. Our liner evaluation work plan is almost complete. The stormwater and leachate management plan is nearing a point where I can review it and send it on to the board staff to begin those discussions. The remaining actions require completion of those first milestones in order to get after it. Since the fall, since this past fall, we've been laser focused on getting through our immediate leachate and stormwater control problems at Las Pulgas, see the winterization liner. Coming out of this meeting, our remaining CDO steps depend a lot on decisions that we need to make about our construction contractor and overseeing engineer. We recognize the responsibility is ours and ours alone, but we do have to work through that contracting process in order to resolve. Since last summer, we've had a regular meeting rhythm with the board staff, which has been extremely helpful. Their technical advice has been extremely helpful. I have learned more about landfill operations than I ever thought possible. We are also thankful for the board's scheduled leniency with regard to the CDO draft. I expect that we will need to use it as government contracting processes are not known for their speed. We will not open that winterization liner, unless we can finish the job and certify the waste units before the rainy season begins again. My goal is to have all of this done in the 2024 dry season. If that is not feasible, we will finish it during the 2025 dry season. The liner itself should last for a decade if we absolutely had to leave it. It is UV stabilized. It's not going anywhere. We're not trampling over it with heavy equipment or using the landfill in any respect. The next slide, since this is a ongoing problem, and one of the issues that is out there that has come to the has been a concern of the board staff, and I'm sure of yourself, is military members, by nature of our jobs, we rotate. And so I wanted to talk about, or take the time to talk about succession so that we can demonstrate to your satisfaction that we'll have a good plan going on into the future, because this will not, be over as long as we operate the landfill. Okay.
So as Commander Ramsey stated, succession is going to be very important here. Military members are known for moving all over the world on a regular basis, and we are certainly no different at Camp Pendleton. So in particular, both Commander Ramsey and Major Sherman will be most likely moving on, not this coming summer, but the following summer. There's a possibility that that will occur for me as well, but currently I'm scheduled to be here through summer of 2026. The importance there is that there will be a significant amount of continued oversight and leadership who is aware of what happened and how we got to the situation that we are and what our resolution plan is. More importantly, we have an incredibly robust civilian workforce who thankfully are still young and will still be in federal service for the foreseeable future. The Public Works Officer is the key position in this entire endeavor. And so as the new Public Works Officer comes in, since I will be available for that, we will do a significant turnover with that Public Works Officer. We will probably even schedule opportunities to meet with the board, make sure that your position and our position is well understood and then solidly documented so that the incoming Public Works Officer will know precisely where we're at and where we need to go. All timelines, all work that's been done, and how we got here and where we're headed. And then we will also continue to work with the board as we continue to resolve these processes, and anything that is resolved obviously won't need to be turned over to the new Public Works Officer. Also, the other thing that I think would be helpful to understand is because of the significant impact of this project, the Public Works Officer, the military member, does receive annual evaluations, and we will make sure that this is part of what they are rated on during their evaluations. That is all I have.
Any questions from the board of Captain Richer or Commander Ramsey? Mr. Sean?
This may be out of your purview, but the landfill question in general, does the base have active programs to try to reduce the flow into the landfills in various, I know that the whole state is dealing with that, but
yes, sir, we do. We have just adopted organic waste diversion. We've just begun to roll that out in concert with our partners at State and Cal Recycle. We also run a qualified recycling program, which is highly successful actually, and has diverted quite a bit of waste out. We recycle everything that we can get our hands on, all the stuff that you would see going into your household recycle bins. It's all manner of plastics, including most things that you don't normally get to recycle, plastic bags, things like that. We sell all of that in bulk, and it's used to fund Marine Corps Community Services projects on the base.
Any other questions?
I have another question for the prosecution team, but not correspondent.
Okay, we'll circle back, and I have one question. You mentioned that the liner is sacrificial, which is not atypical, but how long do you expect this liner to last?
Ma'am, we expect the liner will last a decade if we need to. It's UV stabilized, it's very thick, it doesn't have anything on it. We're not operating machinery or even foot traffic on it. So we expect it'll last 10 years at minimum. I don't expect to use it that long by any stretch of the imagination. I will not leave this mess to my successor. So we expect to use it for half a year, maybe a year and a half at max.
That's good because in my experience of talking about these liners, they always say the lifespan of this liner is X number of years. And imagine how surprised we were when it failed in, half that amount of time. So we hear that story over and over again.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's good that you're not expected to have to use it. Thank you very much. Question for the prosecution.
This will sound like a familiar drumbeat for me, but I continue to question using the 100-year storm metric and whether that's appropriate. We continue to see that, at least in the press, that doesn't feel accurate or what we should be marking against anymore. And I'm just wondering, I know this order is a long time in the making, so I'm not expecting changes now, but it disturbs me that this is, as a board, what we continue to ask dischargers to plan for.
I would say at this time, that is the standard that is used, but I would say that we are told every 5 years that quantity that for that location of the 100-year calculation is done it's recalculated every 5 years.
Okay.
So hopefully that will address some of the changes that we're seeing with the climate.
I just would encourage, I guess, the prosecution team, generally speaking, to think of other appropriate metrics that are going to feel like they are capturing what we need to address as a board versus standards that don't reflect the situation we see on the ground.
We see these 1,000-year storms on a regular basis. Okay, if there's no further questions for the prosecution or for the Marine Corps, do we have any speaker cards from the public, either in the room or on Zoom? None? Okay. Marine Corps, do you want to use any of your reserved time to provide closing remarks?
No, we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Prosecution team, do you have any closing remarks? You do?
Yes, we do. Roger Mitchell will provide the closing remarks.
And Mr. Mitchell, have you taken the oath?
Yes, I
You
have.
just always take the oath, huh?
All right, standard practice. So for the record, my name is Roger Mitchell. I am the branch chief overseeing the site restoration and groundwater protection branch. And so what I'd like to just kind of reiterate is this has been a difficult process for our staff, issuing 8 NOVs, working on the cease and desist. It's not what we intend to do. We've tried to continually work with the Marine Corps and the Navy on these issues. And unfortunately, here we are today with a cease and desist. But what I am pleased to say is that the relationship that we have with the Navy and the Marine Corps moving forward with the cease and desist, I think it has developed into an excellent partnership. And that is one that is built on education, where we can help the Marine Corps be able to succeed in their establishment of that landfill and in compliance with the permit that the board had issued. So I think beyond that, I'm pleased with the Marine Corps' response for this item. And I think moving forward, I intend that there will be full success. And then hopefully in the future, what we'll be able to do is bring this back and bring the Marine Corps back to be able to present to the board on the successes that they've achieved with the CDO, provided you choose to adopt it today. So as Frank had recommended, staff do recommend that the board adopt the CDO. Thank you.
I just feel really compelled to make a comment. We often end up at this point, at this kumbaya point where everybody sees the light and we're able to move forward after 18 months or 24 months or some amount of time. The sad reality is the water board does not have the resources or the time to go through that process. And I'm sure the Marine Corps does not either have resources to go through this process of this remediation that takes the 18 months to come to terms and, find the lay of the land and figure out how we're going to get this resolved. So we really need to learn to do business differently. If you could save that 18 months, I'm sure you would be better off for it. I know we would be better off for it if we could save that 18 months moving forward, because we are just spread way too thin. And I've never heard the Marines say that, they're just rolling in resources and have nothing better to do except for imagine how they can, talk to the water board. So we've got to do better moving forward. And I'm very happy that we came to resolution. It looks like we're going to vote on this shortly. And it looks like we're going to have a performing landfill, which is really important. I live just not too far from there, not downstream, gracias a Dios, but not too far. So it's something that's important to me, as it is for everybody in Southern California. But I think moving forward, we've got to, in the 21st century, learn to do business differently. If there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the second revised cease and desist order, Region 9, 2024-008, United States Marine Corps, Las Pulgas landfill. Oh, I need to close the hearing. I'm sorry. The public hearing for this matter is now closed. Is there any deliberation? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Already
Any further
She beat me to it. That's-
comments or deliberations? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
Chair Cantu?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. At this point, I'll relinquish the gavel to our executive officer, who will then conduct our annual elections. So consider yourself holding this gavel.
Thank you, Chair Cantu. I'd like to ask the board if there are any nominations for the position of Chair of the Board for the calendar year 2024. Dr. Olson?
I'd like to nominate our chair, Celeste Cantu, who has done a lovely job in the last few years, and thank her for being willing to continue.
Thank you very much. I'll save a comment till later.
Are there any comments, or if we make that a motion, a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Chair Cantu, for right now, do you have any comments regarding the nomination?
I would like this to be the last time that I be chair. It's a great honor and privilege, and I would like to see the Tijuana flows brought under control. Whether or not that can be done in one more year, I'm not certain. But it's important to rotate these positions, and we have really great people on this board who can do a great job. So I would like to, I'm putting you all on notice.
Thank you. With Dr. Olson's nomination in motion and Gary Strawn's second, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Hearty aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Yea, verily.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Chair Cantu. Is there a nomination for the position of Vice Chair for calendar year 2024?
I would like to nominate Dr. Betty Olson. We work very well together. She's very accessible and brilliant, and would really enjoy having that opportunity for another year.
Second the nomination.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Are there any comments? And Dr. Olson, I assume you concur with the nomination and are willing to serve.
I am willing to serve. When do I have to come back up for reappointment? Do you know? I thought it was.
I think it's next year. I'll have to look that up.
We're
I
on
don't
the
have it
same
in front of
cycle,
me.
right, Betty?
I think so.
I think we have a while.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I wasn't going to. Okay. Thank you very much.
With a nomination and second, are there any comments? Dr. Olson, do you have any other comments regarding your nomination?
I just want to say thank you both.
Well, yes, I thank people for the nomination. I just want to say that when I was asked to serve on this board, I did so with a great deal of reluctance. And I also would like to say now that this has been a wonderful, enjoyable experience for me. I compliment all the board members and all the staff. You have all been terrific, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Strawn,
Aye.
Ms. Warren,
Aye.
and Chair Cantu.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you and congratulations, Vice Chair Olson. We have the chairs meeting, I believe, noticed right now for the last Friday in May. Both the chair and the vice chair are invited to attend that. And Chair Cantu, have you heard if it will be an in-person or a remote meeting?
It'll be both.
Okay, very good.
And it probably won't happen this May, but I have once again brought up that we should rotate those north and south so that the Southern California people might have something a little closer every once in a while.
Thank you. In closing it out, I see that both Stephanie Warren and Dr. Olson are good on a board through September 30th, 2025.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you very much. That concludes the item.
Next, we have a very important item, an item that actually Dr. Olson kind of queued up already. We don't get this opportunity very often, but item number 7 is a tentative resolution honoring the service of Eric Anderson for his 23, I think, years of service. I remember when you were appointed, your nominator is here in our audience, which is a very special occasion. Mr. Cheney, Moreno Cheney, who was served in the Assembly and the Senate for many, many years in many leadership positions and was a very good friend of the water boards, particularly during budget and other issues, and a very dedicated, and to this date, a very dedicated advocate for water quality, particularly relationships with Tijuana. That leadership is very much appreciative, not just on state and local, but also on federal and continuing on federal boards. We very much appreciate your presence here today. But we really want to celebrate Eric Anderson. Eric was first nominated because in those days, we were looking specifically for representatives from the agricultural community. And that was very hard to find somebody who was willing to serve, who didn't have a conflict. And we were very, very fortunate when Denise DuCheney nominated and the governor appointed Eric Anderson. And we didn't know how long you were going to serve back 23 years ago. And I was certain you didn't know either. But it's been a very fruitful 23 years. We no longer have these designations, but I think we are committed to have a diversity on this board, which includes agriculture. So, one of your requirements as you bow out and become citizen, Eric, is to help us select somebody we can then recommend to the governor's appointment secretary to fill your very large shoes. We do have a resolution. Do we have that available so we can read it? No, we want to read it.
No, it's in the record.
It is in the record, but it says very lovely things about you.
I know, but let's skip it and just move on.
You want to skip that? And your lovely spouse was here, so we want to make sure that you hear all these wonderful things, and we want to thank you for sharing, Eric, once a month, or usually like more than once a month. Would you like to introduce your family members?
My family's here. So, my Anderson, my wife, Russell, my youngest, he's a handful. He's hanging out with Bianca, who is also, I'm supposed to talk, ER nurse. And Miriam is my COO. We got Logan back there. I don't know what he does, but he makes everything work. And then my friend JD Morgan, who I predict in 2040 will take over JP Morgan. He is that good. Anyway, so I'd like to thank all the people, including Allison Papp, my banker, because a dirt farmer needs a good partner. Now, my dad wasn't a partner, kind of, but Allison Papp really was the money. And when without money, dirt farming don't work because the dirt's expensive, especially here in San Diego County, which is why we're small. The average farm in San Diego County is 10 acres. Let's see. I've rehearsed this about 1 million times and none of it works. So I'm just going to do it. I'd like to dispense with all the nice things you have to say about me and say nice things about all you. I'm going to ditto Betty Olson's statement about the staff and everybody because you said it all. It is a good collaboration. And most of all, I am one of the most proud things that ever happened. Well, of course, my family. And that was number one. Denise, and she is a significant powerhouse. She's like you, Celeste. You two ladies make. Yeah, well, yeah, they make the state work. She's still semi-retired, and she's still making the state work. My main regret is still that we have, in our EO report, how many gallons of stuff, 1 billion gallons of stuff going by her front yard. That's my big regret. I wanted to stay on. Oh, well, I'm free now. And, well, we're going to cause a little trouble. Anyway, I'm a dirt farmer with a practical thing. I want to point out the nice palm behind you, Ravinia rivularis. And I was the first commercial nursery seed company to sell the seed into the United States. And in a few years, they were selling 10 million seed before the botanists even figured out it was the wrong name. Ravinia glauca, it's Ravinia rivularis. Anyway, they wrote a book. Instead of 50 species in Madagascar, there's 280 plus. And it's actually brought in by Dr. Darian, a crazy vet who has since passed away. Thank God. Anyway, so who else do we have to? Chris, wait. Chris, who do we have on the Zoom? Is there anybody up there I'm forgetting? I got to throw my brother-in-law by marriage, not by blood, Jim LaBelle, under the bus. He figured out what was wrong with me. Ketosis. I was eating eggs. I switched from Cheerios to eggs, and about 4 o'clock, I couldn't even see straight. And so that was part of my problem. We finally figured it out this week. Oh my goodness. And anyway, so your staff and the executive officer, one of the great honors was being one of the people who got to review and actually got Dave Gibson an interview. He was one of 31, and he wasn't going to get an interview. Two of our staff and one other guy were going to be interviewed. And I said, Henry, how about I think it was Henry, right? Might have been Morales. I think it was Henry Morales. Oh, Richard Wright. I go, why don't we talk to Dave Gibson? I have a good feeling. I think my son over here might remember Dave Gibson. He took time out when he was, 12 years old? And he took time out of his staff. John Robertus had him said, there's a guy who's willing to teach invertebrates. And we remembered, and our team was going to kill the Science Olympiad, except for we forgot to do one thing, the big picture. What's a watershed? No. And when they asked me, what's a watershed? Was it some kind of building? I thought, oh my goodness. We saw all the little bugs, and we did not talk Mayflies, and all that stuff. We never talked about the big picture. So I want to admonish you all to keep take a step back and look at the big picture. I appreciate being honored. And really, my pronouns are us and we, because all of us did it together. His whole staff, John Robertus, turned this organization from a by the book organization, which didn't get much done, and they were actually kind of a laughingstock in the ag community, to a get it done kind of group. And then he took it to another level. He did it in a nice way with the velvet glove. John Robertus was, the Marine guys all left. He was kind of a retired Marine guy, and he went tramping. I remember the darn Orange County stormwater permit. Fine. If you guys don't like our permit, now we'll see what you're going to like. Boy, oh boy, did they complain the next time. Anyway, so then they quit complaining and started working together. That's what it's all about. Everybody working together. Ag, water, that's, Gary Strong. How many volunteer hours do you put in a year? It's amazing. I can't even fathom it. You were a great choice. Betty Olson, all her science background, she throws out questions. I have no clue what she's talking about, but they're important because somebody's got to ask the question. Celeste Cantu, again, like Denise, are people who make the state work. Megan Blair is doing the environmental seed, and she's rather quiet, but Stephanie Warren, well, she mostly needs sugar or food somewhere about 10 o'clock. And if she don't get it, she gets cranky. What do you call it? Yeah. Anyway, so it's good to have one attorney on the board. Let's not have 2 or 3. When we had that many, we never got anything done. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate, and I do think I'll.
Can we ask,
I forgot Brent Miller. Brent Miller is my grower. And he is, I don't know why he's out there. He likes being out there. It's not the pay, that's for sure. And it's not the working conditions, because I yell at him a lot and he yells back. Anyway, Hypo Estes, we should do a little bit more beauty in our thing. This is a very sterile environment. Anyway, I want to direct you to where we started. My grandfather's philodendrons. That's a great article. That showed up 2 days ago. My cousin sent it laminated. I had no idea. I'd seen it. I had no idea it still existed. Anyway, so that's a nice thing to read
it
about.
all start with philodendrons, huh?
It did. Philodendron seeds.
Could we invite Denise Ducheney to, you're such a supporter of not just Eric, but the water boards in general and water quality, and you know water rights and Salton Sea and Tijuana, and there's not a water aspect that you have not been involved in advocating for or against, and somehow to make it move forward.
And just so you know, I do have a little bit of cold, but we just checked the COVID thing, just like NPR said, no COVID.
Do you have a little bit of COVID?
Thank you, and I'll keep this short because I think you have a lunch planned, right? So, for her sugar thing, for her insulin. Well, thank you very much, and thank you to Celeste and the rest of you and to Eric for inviting me today. I got to say, it was true. Back once upon a time, 20 plus years ago, this board was having trouble making a quota, if I recall correctly, and particularly because you had the designated slots, how to find them. You just mentioned a name that was like Flash from Christmas Past, but I think I also nominated Richard Wright at the time because we needed a whatever he was, academic-y person, and it was those slots that were sort of the thing. And the question of an ag person, to me, you had to have one, and you need that voice on. And I hope even without the designations, you're able to find some kind of an agricultural voice for this board going into the future. But I just wanted to join you all in thanking Eric. I had no idea he would be here 20 plus years. I wasn't sure he'd survive 1 governor, let alone 3. And I have certainly appreciated the opportunity to work with the board over the years when Celeste was chair of or executive director of the big board, and also working with Dave on a regular basis on the Tijuana River estuary and watershed issues. We're still out there struggling. I was mentioning the other day, it's 30 years, and when I first got elected to the assembly more than some 30 years ago, and I'm still doing the same issues that I was doing then, the Tijuana River issues and Tijuana River watershed issues. I always want to make watershed the point. It is a cross-border watershed, and I'm still trying to get a university in Chula Vista that will create more water managers for the rest of you someday. So thank you all for your service, and thank you to Eric for doing this duty for so many years. All of you who do these volunteer boards, I'm always impressed. They are an awful lot of work for very little remuneration, except for the fun you get to have when you're together. So thank you all very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for joining us.
That brings to mind, I forgot the 2 guys who came before me. Since Porter Cologne, Chuck Badger was Porter Cologne. He knew the judge, and he was on our board for forever. Then he got axed because of a little tit for tat with Governor Wilson at the time, with the insurance commissioner now, or a while ago. And then Charlie Walk. Charlie Walk mentored me, and he taught me a lot of things. Charlie Walk was amazing, and he was the best representative from ag we've ever had. He's the one who fined what? Coronado, $2 million he and Day. Man, they went after those guys, and what they wanted to do was get compliance. And when they came and lied to us, that's what he said. They threw the book at him. That's what we had to do to the liars.
That's right.
If you're willing to cooperate, let's work with you.
We want to give you a resolution.
Okay.
We have it, yeah, we're going to take pictures. You should stand over here or someplace, and I think we should all join. We do need a motion and a second to pass this resolution. I don't think we're allowed to give it if it's not been passed.
I'll second.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Warren? Chair Cantu?
Motion carried. Everybody join us up here. Do we have someone who takes the picture? I know you're. Is this the best place for us to stand?
I like the seal.
The seal is good.
That's the whole thing. Are we doing the seal here or back there?
I've seen them with Tomas.
So one of the things about Stephanie, she was short.
I'll stand on the edge.
She's a good surfer. And her son's a surfer. We're in the
Okay,
water.
wait, we gotta show the resolution, evidence.
You have to turn it around. There you go.
We had to sign it.
I don't. Don't worry about it. We could just.
Are you smiling?
Chris, will you turn it around?
Are we done? Yeah, Chris, distributed. Well, all right. This is the special moment.
Oh, yeah.
3 minutes, citizen.
I just keep checking the 3 minutes. We learned from the Board of Supervisors, none of them are here, and they make us, and they're down to 2 minutes now. So I think
You
it's.
can, you can stay plenty.
Yes, you can.
Or reporter's gonna yell at you. Or the woman who takes it all down.
Oh, no, I go slow. We appreciate it for reporters. They're probably the highest paid person. Anyway, thank you Denise for appointing me. And it actually was for. I didn't do it. Well, yes, you did. I only nominated. Okay. But anything Denise said, Gray did, because why? You were the one without Denise. And there was a lot of other things that she's done. And you all needed to pay attention, look at her resume, and pay attention when this woman says, hey, we need to fix this because she's about getting it done. Ag is a bipartisan issue. Anyway, I think we got enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that plan for the board?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I want to see things, what, and how will they forward.
I think we have completed our agenda. I guess I need to get on the mic. We have completed our agenda, so our meeting is therefore adjourned.